All right, quickly, let's cut across to Washington, D.C., where U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane are testifying before the House Armed Services Committee. Listen in.
Incredibly grateful, Secretary Hegseth and General Kane. With your vision and steadfast commitment to our nation's service members, you have both overseen the beginning of a generational transformation of our armed services. This budget request reflects that commitment by building and sustaining our defense industrial base, increasing service member pay, housing, and benefits, robust funding for Golden Dome missile defense and space capabilities, and the emphasis on the peace through strength doctrine outlined in the National Defense Strategy. Based on the Defense Department's recent track record of successful missions, can you share some examples of military action that illustrate exactly how your leadership and vision for the Department of War is translating the peace through strength doctrine into an operational reality, and what psychological impact that may have on our near-peer adversaries such as China and Russia? And I'd like to get both yours and General Kane's perspective. If you can take 30 seconds each.
I'll keep it brief. Reestablishing deterrence was one of the core pillars of what we set out to do after Afghanistan, after October 7th, after the war in Ukraine, after Lloyd Austin went AWOL for a week and no one seemed to care. The world took notice of that. And through the actions we've taken swiftly that I just laid out, the world has recognized that American power is back, and the willingness to utilize it shows that we can achieve peace through strength.
And General Kane, in terms of our adversaries?
Yes, sir. You know, when we look at the totality of actions that we've done over the last year, one thing leaps out at me that I think is clearly and unambiguously seen by our adversaries or those that may consider it, and that's our ability to integrate and synchronize a whole range of capabilities that we have in the joint force. Information, cyber, deception, jamming, air power, sea power, land power, et cetera. And I think that ability, and I'm so proud of our joint force, those young...
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Carbajal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, General Kane, Mr. Hegseth, and hers for being here today. I associate myself with the comments of Ranking Member Smith and Mr. Garamendi, so that I won't repeat a lot of what has been said. Mr. Hegseth, I recently realized that we have something in common. I'm also a fan of Pulp Fiction. And no, the movie is not an accurate portrayal of the Bible. You know what I'm talking about. This president and his administration have claimed to be the most transparent of all time. With that in mind, I'd love to get some straightforward answers today. Some estimates show that the Trump administration's war of choice in Iran is costing taxpayers around $1 billion every day. In addition to spending taxpayer money on a war they don't want, it is also driving up costs. The cost of gas, while the cost of living is skyrocketing under this administration's policies. To me, and I assume to the American people, it is unclear why we started this war, how it will end, and what anyone gained from it. Mr. Hegseth, about how much money has been spent on this war to date, and how much more do you anticipate spending?
Well, as our comptroller laid out, the estimate is less than $25 billion at this point as far as an expenditure. And the question I would ask this committee is, what is it worth to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, considering the radical ambitions of that regime? I mean, almost every member of this dais at some point has said, whether it was
thank you for your answer. I'll proceed to my next question.
Thank
you for your answer.
President Trump is the one that's willing to make sure it doesn't happen.
Supposedly, we had taken care of the nuclear capability last time around. And now this war, we're at it again, because obviously we said we did, but we did it.
In a way that
we know,
the United States military can do.
I want to reclaim my time. We know that the cost of oil and gas has gone up as a direct result of this war, and the American people are feeling that pain at the pump. In an attempt to alleviate the high price of gas caused directly by this president, he lifted sanctions on Russian oil. The way I see it, this is a massive gift to Putin and Russia's struggling economy. Mr. Hegseth, is there any concern that easing sanctions against Russia will allow Putin to continue funding Russia's illegal war against Ukraine?
Well, we've seen Russia's and Putin's inability to make effective battlefield gains, just like their inability to defend the Maduro regime with the billions of dollars of systems the Russians sent to Venezuela in order to defend him, which were defeated in 15 minutes. So Russia's military capabilities are no match for ours.
And you don't believe easing the
ensuring
sanctions is helping Russia?
Well, we have the best energy team in the planet
it's just a yes or
White
no.
House. We're going to ensure that
this is not deja vu. It's a simple yes or
I
no.
understand the energy dominance that this administration has unleashed.
All right, well, I'll proceed to my next question.
Strategy.
Last week, it was announced that the Department of Defense is no longer requiring service members to get their annual flu shot. Now, this is an easy one for you. It's a softball. Don't screw it up. The rationale was to, and I quote, restore freedom to our joint force. This has been a requirement since 1950 because it is an effective at preventing the spread of flu among our troops. It's not some new woke requirement, as you like to lean on for much of your rhetoric. This decision is actively making our military less safe and less prepared. Mr. Hegseth.
All right, that is the House Armed Services Committee questioning Pete Hegseth as well as General Kane on the Iran war. Quite a heated exchange taking place between the lawmakers and the Secretary of War as well as General Kane, saying that nuclear obliteration is something that America claimed to have already done last year, but clearly that aim hasn't been achieved if the attack is still going on against Iran. Donald Trump has once again escalated his rhetoric towards Iran. A fresh warning on his Truth Social is once again raising eyebrows. This comes at a moment when diplomatic channels between Washington and Tehran are already stalled, and the Strait of Hormuz remains a major flashpoint for global energy security. Trump's posts seem to be adding fresh rhetorical heat to an already volatile situation. The latest warning in a Truth Social post shows an AI-generated picture of Trump holding an assault rifle, as you can see. The thumbnail on this picture reads, "No more Mr. Nice Guy," with a bold warning to Iran to get their act together and get smart soon. This latest warning comes as ceasefire and non-nuclear talks remain stalled. Negotiations, which were expected to continue earlier this month, were disrupted after the abrupt cancellation of the second round of talks, including a planned visit for American negotiators. Now, the first round of engagements, which took place in Islamabad involving the Vice President, J.D. Vance, ended without any breakthrough. What was expected to be a gradual diplomatic track has instead dissolved into a pattern of missed meetings, cancelled trips, and hardening positions on both sides. The articulated position of U.S. in this war is to stop Iran's nuclear enrichment program, as it remains the focal point of Trump's as well as Netanyahu's military campaign in Iran. At the same time, Donald Trump has sought to project a picture of military and strategic superiority. From the clock is ticking message to Iran's navy lying at the bottom of the sea to time is not on their side, Trump has posted several times mocking Iran and tried posturing the strength of his own military campaign. This escalation in words is not occurring in isolation. It follows a period of intensifying tensions around the Hormuz, which, remember, remains under American blockade but under Iranian control. The result has been a continuing disruption to global energy flows and a deepening stalemate between the two sides. Iran says that it would consider reopening the strait if the U.S. sanctions and blockades on its ports are lifted and the conflict comes to an end. But at present, both sides remain locked in a cycle of action and counteraction. With every day, the Iran conflict and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz continue. The global impact and economic fallout increase. The fate of the global economy now depends on whether and when a real ceasefire emerges, the stalemate holds, or the conflict widens. A World Bank and International Monetary Fund research shows that 15% of global oil supply still blocked at the Strait of Hormuz. That runs up to 15.8 million barrels per day, which is roughly 62,000 barrels per day of jet fuel, which is also blocked at the strait. Global GDP losses currently stand at $590 billion, or over 0.5% of world GDP, if the conflict ends now. In the most likely scenario, based on the current back and forth between the US and Iran, is a phantom ceasefire. Under this scenario, the global GDP loss is estimated at $3.57 trillion if the war continues for another month. The scarcity and supply crisis is reflected in the difference between the physical oil price of over $140 per barrel and benchmark Brent futures trading at around $110. The over $30 premium confirms the physical market scarcity. So Trump's "no more Mr. Nice Guy" statement takes on a dual interpretation. On the one hand, it can be read as classic negotiating posture intended to project strength, increase pressure on Iran to force concession at the negotiation table. On the other hand, it comes as signs of returning to war, especially when diplomatic talks are breaking down, military rhetoric is intensifying, and global economic stakes are rising sharply. Let's talk about the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia has unleashed a wave of drone strikes across Ukraine, signaling its spring offensive is fully underway now. Overnight, Russian forces launched massive drone attacks, leaving a trail of destruction from Kharkiv in the northeast to Odessa in the south. Ukrainian authorities said that these strikes hit at least 9 major areas, damaging residential buildings, hospitals, and critical infrastructure. In the Sumy region, the town of Shostka witnessed some of the worst devastation. Fires tore through residential neighborhoods after a series of coordinated strikes hit the city. Ukraine's emergency crews worked through the night, battling flames, rescuing trapped civilians, and evacuating residents from shattered apartment blocks. According to Ukrainian authorities, a 60-year-old woman died from carbon monoxide poisoning, while several others sustained injuries. Ukraine's Air Force said that it intercepted 154 out of 171 drones launched overnight. Despite that, several drones still struck targets across multiple locations, while falling debris caused additional damage in other areas. Across Ukraine, Russian attacks have killed at least 5 people and they've injured more than 20. Both Kharkiv and Donetsk have reported 2 deaths each and multiple injuries, with extensive damage to homes, transport systems, and commercial infrastructure. As per Ukrainian officials, Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Odessa oblasts also faced heavy bombardment that crippled essential services. Ukraine state grid operator reported that as a result of the Russian attacks, power outages occurred in Donetsk, Sumy, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Odessa and Zaporizhia oblasts, disrupting daily lives and straining the already fragile systems. Now, this surge in drone warfare comes as Russia intensifies its spring offensive, even launching rare daytime strikes, including in the capital, Kiev. Ukrainian officials say the scale of these attacks is unprecedented, revealing how drone warfare has now become central to Russia's strategy. Last month, Ukraine claimed to shoot down 33,000 Russian drones, which is the highest monthly figure since the war began in February 2022. On the battlefield, Russian troops continue to push forward. Moscow said that its forces have captured new positions in Kharkiv and Donetsk, advancing deeper into Ukrainian defenses. As per Russian military experts, the capturing of the 2 areas has helped Russia penetrate 7 kilometers deeper into Ukraine. At the same time, Ukraine is also continuing aerial attacks against Russia. Russia said that it shot down 10 guided aerial bombs and 303 drones overnight. Ukraine's President Zelensky, meanwhile, has said that Kiev will expand the reach of its strikes inside Russia. On social media, Zelensky posted the footage of what he said was an attack on a target at a distance of more than 1,500 kilometers. Ukrainian security forces claim they targeted a Russian oil facility in the city of Perm, nearly 1,500 kilometers away, showcasing their growing long-range capabilities. Russian President Vladimir Putin called such attacks against oil facilities as proof that Ukraine has been escalating attacks on civilian infrastructure.
Drone strikes against civilian infrastructure are becoming more frequent. The latest example involves strikes on energy facilities in Tuapse, which could potentially lead to serious environmental consequences.
As offensives continue to ramp up on the ground and in the skies, the war, which is in its 5th year, shows no signs of slowing down.